Ladies and gentlemen, I present the one Hercule Poirot novel I've been dreading ever since I skipped over it a few years ago, The Big Four. This novel, if you could call it a novel, is, I believe, Agatha Christie's fourth novel featuring Hercule Poirot, so good job to her for lining that up, I guess. The novel features Captain Hastings as narrator as well, which is kind of fun as a touch that I hadn't really realized was going to be here. I'll admit that on the day 5 years ago or so, when I listened to the first hour or two of this book and then just skipped over it because it wasn't what I was looking for at the time, I was not exactly in the best mood and probably not the most receptive to this novel. Maybe more importantly, though, I knew much less about it and was totally unfamiliar with certain flavors of Christie's Poirot mysteries that I'd be encountering here. It is totally different from Christie's previous Poirot works up to this point. I believe she didn't even really like the book that much herself after publishing it, and if you look around at how this book has been received, readers pretty consistently consider this one a huge dud. Some of them even consider it the very worst. That said, this time I went into it with a lot more motivation than I did 5 years ago. I was in a much better mood, not least because this was the last Poirot novel standing between me and the grand finale curtain. I'd learned by now that The Big Four, while few would consider it one of Christie's finest works, is at least considered more enjoyable if you approach it as a collection of short mystery stories with an underlying theme, one story in each chapter or two, rather than as a novel with a real underlying plot to the whole thing. And this is very true. The self-contained mysteries are a lot tighter than this larger-than-life international mystery that's going on here. Add to this the fact that although the international crime syndicate plot seemed just farcical when I first heard the idea of it, I mean, it still will stretch even the most patient readers' imaginations, but if you expect things to be this way, as I did in, say, Cat Among the Pigeons, if this is just what if you know this is the type of Christie novel that it's going to be, that might allow you to be more lenient on it. Most of all, though, my expectations of this novel were just so low that I anticipated this book would fall squarely at the bottom of the list, and really I could only be pleasantly surprised at what I found here. And I'm happy to report that I was pleasantly surprised at what I found here. Even the parts I remembered finding really annoying the last time I started listening to it were more enjoyable this time going in with a fresh mindset. Of course, I also had the benefit of coming into this book straight off of what I can now confirm without hesitation is the true worst Poirot novel of all. And I can't remember what that one was called, but if you know any elephants, maybe they could remind you. But all in all, this is, practically speaking, a novel containing a lot of fun short stories, a few of which are particularly memorable and up there with some of the best of the short stories from the other true Poirot short story collection. On the other hand, all this stuff about the Big Four, the most evil of evil supervillains bent on acquiring a super weapon and achieving world super domination is not super enjoyable. Still, I found it regular enjoyable, more enjoyable than I think many other readers did. If you know the character of Poirot and the style of other Poirot novels written at the time, I agree this is simply nothing like those other novels. However, I simply wasn't as bothered as most people by the fact that the characters in this novel are not actually all that realistic in their behavior. That the Big Four are actually incredibly stupid when you really get to the bottom of it, despite how many times we're told that they're masterminds. Or that Poirot is, in every other context we've ever known, supposed to be a detective, not some sort of secret agent, and yet here he comes out looking like he's in a James Bond movie or even in a Marvel movie. I just accepted it on that level. Hastings also adds to this impression, serving not only as the narrator, but more so than ever as the goofy sidekick who gets into trouble and has to be repeatedly rescued. But look, that also means I can't spend much more time in this video complaining about the normal stuff like all that international spy stuff that came out of nowhere, or that the mystery was too far-fetched or the characters were too silly, since I've already established all that. It is true, I should add, that even most of the short story mysteries, though entertaining, are quite far-fetched. The one about a man apparently assassinated at a chess match, for example, is a little bit out there, yet I still found it a pretty fun mystery with some real clues to help us. It also is true that the cigarette scene, no spoilers here, but if you've read this, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, is utterly ridiculous, and I simply do not care that it's ridiculous. I found it highly amusing. And yeah, this book is also not very politically correct by modern standards, which I can understand will decrease the fun factor for many readers, among other things in its unfavorable depictions of the Chinese and in some broad insinuations about global politics that may seem rather ignorant nowadays. Others have address these themes in other contexts, so I'm kind of glossing over them for this book and just giving it a bit of a pass, whether that's fair or not, since I'm also conceding that partially because of these things, this is not likely to be your favorite Poirot book you've ever read either. All this means, though, that this is going to be a short video because I don't really have much else to say about this one. All in all, I found it an entertaining book, taking it for what it is, and I'm happy to declare for me that this is no longer the potentially worst book in the Poirot series. I'd probably put it around the 25% point or so, probably better than about a quarter of the Poirot novels I've read, although I think it's hard to compare this one directly head-to-head with others. Let me know what you've thought, though, if you've read this one. I certainly think you could concede all the points I made in this review, let those things slide, and still argue that this book is not that well written or truly imaginative. I'm not so sure if I'd agree, but I think there is a case to be made there. So did you find this one strangely charming as well, or did you just want to X this one out of the Poirot canon, as I sort of did before eventually giving it that second chance? Let me know. And until next time. Actually, wait a second. You know what this means now, of course, is that next time will be the final Poirot mystery, Curtain. I don't know exactly where I'm going to go after that one. There are certainly plenty of other mysteries that I'd like to talk about, including other Agatha Christie works like Marple, though I know some viewers really enjoy the Poirot ones. Also, depending on how long you've been around or how far back you've gone into the vault of my videos, you may know that I have not discussed every Poirot mystery here, not even every Poirot novel. I only started about midway through the collection of novels, and that was at Appointment with Death. I've sometimes wondered whether, once I finished the series, I'd go back eventually to the beginning and work my way up to where I started, kind of come full circle. But that was always so far off in my mind that I never really gave it too much thought, yet now here I am. I do think it could be fun to go back to where it all began and discuss some of the earlier Poirot works, particularly because several of the most beloved Poirot novels, including for myself, are in some of those earlier works. The catch is just that if I do go that route, it'll probably be even slower than the already pretty slow pace I put up these Poirot videos right now, because it's harder for me to find that motivation to read a book I've already read, as enjoyable as it might be, than to start something entirely new. So yeah, I'll think about it a bit and hopefully say a bit more on that after Curtain. Let me know, though, what you're most interested in. More Poirot, more Christie, more Golden Age detective fiction in general, or just more mysteries of any kind. I can't really promise anything in terms of what I'll do next, since for me, ultimately, reading is something I do for leisure and for enjoyment, and this channel is an extension that comes out of that, rather than my primary reason for reading what I read. But particularly within the realm of mysteries and detective fiction, I still really enjoy them. I know there's a lot of good material out there, but yeah, I do welcome recommendations about what to read. I actually I read some Nio Marsh after some recommendations by viewers on the channel, and I'm going to talk about the first two of those books at some point soon on this channel. So thank you for the recommendation there. Now, all this is in addition to the other stuff I like to read and discuss on my channel, but I do anticipate reading mysteries and talking about them here and there for a long time to come, interspersed with the rest of stuff that I read. So I think there will be plenty of material, at least, to keep going in that vein. And this means that with the upload of this review, I'm at long last caught up in my reviews of all the Poirot that I've read, and I'm finally cleared for The Last Adventure, Curtain, which was part of my motivation in finally getting all these reviews finished. So I'll see you there, and happy reading.